Hi guys, my name is John Evans. I work with thousands and thousands of athletes to improve their vertical, gain their confidence back, and get healthy. This video is with a volleyball player who's used a variety of techniques, and we cover it in extensive detail and what you should do, how you can apply this to your volleyball play. So go ahead, enjoy the video.
Number one, I've always plateaued with my strength. And like even upon joining THP, my strength it's going up very slowly. I think I hit 240 on my back squat when I first started in like October. I was in November, and then I hit 250 in April. And in general, I think, my squatting is very low, especially relative to my other lifts. My power clean is 185 or 180, and my front squat is 225.
How much do you weigh?
I'm 145.
Okay, that changes things. How tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
I mean, you're definitely not weak. I want to be clear. At 145 pounds, you're doing 250. That's what you said. You're encroaching on, and I'm assuming that's a deep squat. So if you're at a true 2x body weight in a deep squat, you're getting pretty damn strong. So for you,
And
that's
how tall are you? How tall are you, by the way?
I'm 5'7".
5'7".
Okay, okay.
290 is a true 2x squat. I don't think Isaiah, he weighs 180. I gotta see. How old are you, Brian?
I'm 23.
Okay, yeah, so you're still really young too. So 370 for Isaiah's 2x body weight for perspective. Obviously, he's a little bit taller, so it's probably a little bit more. But he probably didn't hit that on the training until year 3 with us, and that was 2 times body weight in a deep squat. And even then, it wasn't as clean as it is now. Like he today actually just hit a PB in back squat at 425. You're relatively strong. That's why you're seeing these delayed adaptation or like kind of diminishing returns. It's going to happen. That's just the nature of it. The second thing is the first 6 months of the training you were on load management, where we're really focused on jumping and jump volume. And I'm assuming you're a volleyball player. Are you trying to not? Yeah, volleyball player. So I'm assuming you were playing a lot. I don't know about now. It's the summer. Do you do 9-man or do you play indoor or what do you do?
I do outdoor. Like I'm trying not to jump off program, passing and like
Okay,
practicing when I
good,
can.
good.
Tournaments are like really brutal. Like I've really only did one 3-day tournament like a couple weeks ago, and it's still kind of taking a while for my body to recover
Yeah,
from.
I think indoor grass is relatively easier on your body. It's better than, or sorry, not indoor, but grass is relatively easier. Indoor is probably a little bit harder. I do think that, if you want to up the volume of jumping, we're going to have to drop volume elsewhere. So that means, doing a little bit less lifting and things like that. But it really kind of depends on your goals. Right now, you are definitely driving up. Like you said in April, you hit your squat PB, and that makes sense because that cycle is brutal with volume. You're squatting 5x10 and then 5x8 and 6x6. Like it's just really intense. And then in May, we're kind of moving to higher specificity. We're moving to higher intent. So you're doing jump squats, you're doing, pin squats, you're doing heavy front squats, but you've got step up jumps and kind of like, a little bit more specificity there. You're getting into asymmetric bilateral movements. And then last month, in June, you're doing jump squats, you're doing hurdle hops, you're doing some plyos, things that a lot of guys really like to do. The volumes are lower. So at the end of the day, we're always shooting for performance. The goal outcome is for you to jump higher. It's not for you to lift more weight. Lifting weight is a KPI because strength is a KPI for jumping, but it's not necessarily the thing that will make you jump higher at the end of the day. You can't just get stronger and you'll jump higher. Look at powerlifters. They jump like shit. You need to have a periodized program. So I would encourage you not to get too obsessed with the number you're doing in a 1 rep max and be a little bit more open-minded to different types of strength. There's something called eccentric strength. There's something called isometric strength. There's reflexive stress shortening cycle, abilities. But my question is, have you noticed your vertical fluctuating up and down across different cycles as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's usually, I think it's really neural. Some days I just feel like I can just run as fast as possible and my body will do, the rest.
Yeah,
Like
you'll
it'll
sky.
enough to do. Some days I don't like have to really think about it. Or like if I have a flare up in my knee, then it feels like I can't push it as hard as I want to.
Right.
I just had a jump session for like last week's jump session. I did my opposite plant and I PR'd. I hit like 2 inches less than my regular plan with a 3-step approach.
Yeah. So I always say this, like high tides raise all ships. And when you start seeing the metric you're not even working on go up, you're like, there's a storm brewing. And we just saw this with Isaiah, right? Like his 1 foot vertical, he hit like a tamala, like third try on a 9, 10 and a half stiff ass rim and was like hitting windmills and east bays. And it was like, we haven't done any 1 foot, like zero. He's just and then we did some sprinting and he's faster than he's ever been. And then he's hitting power clean PRs, but we're not even necessarily power clean cleaning that much. And that's because all of the stuff that you're doing is raising your physiological basement. You're going to be capable of producing more force across every single velocity, across every single contraction type, and do it reflexively with a stretch shortening cycle or do it statically from a standstill. And it is a slow process, but it definitely works. And it's something that if you stick with it and you complete each consecutive mesocycle or macro cycle, you're going to notice you're a better product at the end of it. Real quick, guys, if you're interested in getting coaching and being on one-on-one calls like this, feel free to go to thpstrength.com. We're actually charging 90% off our first month. So you have access to myself, Isaiah, Ben, who's a PT, and all of the other coaches that I've personally trained and hired. So if you're interested in that, go to teachmestrength.com and sign up. And then if you take it a step further and you focus on fat, decreasing fat mass, taking in more protein, dialing in the micronutrients with, multivitamins and things like that, then you're going to improve even more. So I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about it. You are coming up on some very intense strength work. Right now, you're finishing up what I call like the Prinz loop in a way. You're actually moving into Prinz loop, what we call 4. I'm tempted to kind of just nuke you with some stuff, but that's kind of what this cycle is. But there's harder ones. There's much harder ones. I guess it depends on how hard do you want to train right now? Do you want to go all out? Do you want to train your ass off, or do you want to balance in season stuff?
I'm basically out of season after August 1st. I'm good to never play volleyball until next summer type of thing,
Okay.
and dial in the training.
So I think what we could do is just start the cycle and you just keep the percentages a little lower. And then, maybe what I would also do is I'll actually take these out. We'll take out the general days and then you can just play on Saturdays. But
So I was wondering about jump days because on load management, I had 2 jump days and it was like my form was so much easier to like dial in. And I actually just did like one day, I just focused on the highest intensity jumps I could do. The second, I try to prioritize having perfect form, but still, dialing in the intensity. Now with only one jump day, it's kind of, I don't know how to structure it.
yeah, so I mean, that is kind of the nature of it. And I'm actually tempted to put you on that load management cycle with maybe some slight modifications because you probably responded really well to that. And it seems like it's also more fun. Are you in a flare up still right now?
It kind of got re-flared up after my first tournament, but it's not too like if I warm up properly, I don't really feel pain. I just feel like I can't jump as hard. Like my body doesn't let me jump as hard, but it doesn't really aggravate it.
So I think what we should do is put you on a load management cycle until the beginning of August. And, it might be something familiar, but that's okay. What happens when you get more specific on the court is you have to get more general in the weight room. You can't have things be specific everywhere. So what that means is jumping is the most specific thing you can do. It's the thing that mimics the goal outcome the most. That's jumping, right? And so you can't be jumping in the weight room because that mimics jumping a lot. And you can't be doing plyos because that mimics jumping a lot. And those have a cost. There is an expense on your body, and that causes potential injury if you overdraw from your physiological bank account. And you right now are currently already a little bit in debt. So if we keep drawing from that bank account, you're going to go further and further in debt, and it's going to take longer for you to get out of debt. So what I want to do is I want to move you to load management these next 2 weeks. I want you to be super cognizant of going slow with the squats when you need to, or the leg press. The ollies are optional. You definitely don't have to go heavy on those. You don't need to like go crazy. This is maintenance right now. We're just trying to balance those. The timers that I give you, I would say try to jump at least one day, best case jump 2 if you can, but your goal is after 2 weeks to come out relatively healthy. Now, in regards to answering the question about how to jump more, honestly, if you want to train hard, you're not going to be able to jump more. And I don't think that you should expect to jump more, nor do I think jumping more and getting your quote unquote technique better is going to be the thing that makes you better. I think the thing that's going to make you a better volleyball player is the days that you do practice having incredibly high intent and making sure that you're working with a setter that you're going to be working with and working on timing the sets appropriately and taking off at the right spot and using good technique on the sets and hits. Because a lot of the time what guys do is they get some random setter at a court who's not the one that they usually set with or hit with. They're really bad. They can't pass. And then every jump is different. Every jump is going to be suboptimal. Every jump is going to be, mistimed. And then you're not able to start to auto regulate. You're not able to start learning and feel confident in your approach. And then you're jumping lower than you would be otherwise. So I would encourage you to kind of throw away the concept that you need to be playing more. I think playing more is reserved for defense and serving and things that aren't max effort hitting over people, right? You could still, walk up and kind of float the ball, put some back, or I guess that would be front spin on the
Top
ball.
spin, yeah.
Yeah. And, kind of just place it, or you could do some, little different taps and touches and things like that. But for you to max effort, crank, hit like spikes, that's something that's going to have to be low volume. And I've seen it way too many times go astray. Guys get way too obsessed with wanting to hit all the time. It's like guys that want to dunk all the time. And then they go into a big tournament and they're messed up because they didn't listen to me or they can't train hard, and then they're not improving in anything. They're not getting healthy. They're not getting stronger, and they're not getting max effort jump efforts. They're just stagnating. They're just doing stuff to do stuff, but it's not really making a difference. I would encourage you to also kind of shift your mindset around that and start to plan your sessions where you actually can make a difference in your long-term athletic development on the day. Don't just go in and get a little bit of work in to get a little bit of work in.
For my jump sessions, I use a vert trainer, usually just to
Okay.
do.
So that's not a bad option, but hitting is going to get harder. So what I would do is I would blend them. I probably would go either start with the vert trainer and then go hit, or vice versa, go hit, then do the vert trainer. I used to do that with guys a lot. The problem is that testing is super intense. It's one of the most intense things you can do, really hard on your body. You could also alternate. You could do one session, where you're hitting and playing volleyball, and then the next session you could do on a vert trainer, and you go volleyball and then vert trainer, or you can blend the sessions. The more variety you have, the more variety you have and the better you perform in that high variety environment, the more motor skills and motor patterns will be retained and improved upon. The less variety you have, the easier it is to perform at a really high level, but the less motor skills you retain in more chaotic environments. So for example, in a volleyball game, if you're only doing volleyball, you're probably going to perform really well in volleyball, but you might suck on the vert trainer. Vice versa, if you only do the vert trainer and you never hit, then you're going to be really good at the vert trainer, you're going to suck at hitting. If you were to blend them or randomly pick out of a hat what you're going to do, then you're going to have the highest motor retention. You're going to be improving the most at those motor skills because the contextual interference is high and your brain needs interference. It needs to be challenged to retain motor skills. So what I would probably encourage you to do is mix it up. The more variety you have in the session, the better your motor skill is going to get retained and the better your hitting is going to be and the better you're going to get at working on technique. It's not going to be perfect when you go work on technique or vertical, but if you're trying to make it better, that's better than just going in mindlessly and trying to quote unquote like perform, if that makes sense. Yeah, that would be my recommendation for that.
I have a quick question also about, is there a good time or a good metric to know if someone should ask for a different cycle, or you think whatever,
So I would say, yeah, if I were to give you like advice as a client who's paying for the service, here's what I would tell you. When you're in season, you need to tell people you're in season. When you're playing a lot, you need to tell them you're playing a lot. When you have a tournament coming up, you need to tell the chat you're doing that. If you're on a cycle that has a lot of strength volume and you're not strong yet, it's the right cycle for you. If you've been doing strength work for more than about 3 months and you feel really flat, you either need to A, unload, or B, you need to do some faster work. If your vertical starts to go down massively during a strength cycle, you need to unload. That's a really strong indicator. If your vertical is going up each week, you need to continue to do whatever you're doing because that means that you're unloading probably, or whatever you're doing is working relatively well. Now, generally, I don't like to switch cycles or like switch a focus too frequently. Once you start a cycle, I would encourage you to complete it all the way through. If you have a question about what cycle you're doing and what the focus of that is, and it's always good to share your metrics in the chat. So say, hey, I just finished this cycle. Here were my test numbers. Here's what I did. And include things like, here's my RSI. Here was my approach vertical. This is my cluster of what I did. Here's my sprint time. Here's my power clean. Here's my back squat. And then send a video of you jumping. If you do that, I guarantee like 10 times out of 10, you're going to get the cycle that you need, because any of the coaches are going to be able to look at that and say, oh, it looks like your technique is really bad. And that's that's going to be the major constraint in your improvement. Or it looks like you're really weak. I wouldn't say you're really weak, but you definitely still need to get stronger. And I always tell guys this, there's pretty much you can't be too strong. You need to, if people say you're too strong, you're not, they're lying to you. You can't have a high enough ceiling on strength work. You can't be too powerful.
On that point, I have FAM strength work, and as advanced as I am, still helps. I have not seen like diminishing returns from getting stronger.
Yeah.
You know how people always say like, oh, they're like, once you get this squat, like you're good, like
Yeah.
Getting stronger has always helped.
Mm-hmm. And I always pose the question of, okay, well, how are you planning on improving now? What's your plan now? Like, oh, so you're not going to use jump squats, you're not going to use power cleans, you're not going to use squats. Okay, well, what's your plan? You're just going to do plyos? That's going to get really stale really quick. There's only a handful of plyos that are really worth doing. What are you going to do? Just jump every day? The weight room is a tool to not only keep you healthy, but it's to improve your outputs and challenge your nervous system. And I'm not saying plyos are bad or any of those things are bad, but in the context of challenging our physiology, the weight room is such a beautiful beautiful tool to be able to get that done. Obviously, we can use running and sprinting, but every time you share your metrics, it gives us more data. And the more data I have, the better I can do my job. I always tell my guys that you don't lose, you learn. We're always collecting data. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's data that you can use and you can make informed decisions on moving forward. So I would really also recommend doing that, and then take some of the things I said about being in season, if your vertical is going down, if you feel like your strength is high enough. Like if your strength gets up to 2x in a front squat or back squat, deep back squat, we can play around with a month or two of faster stretch shortening type work or back off heavily in the weight room and kind of see what happens. But I don't really like to do that with too many guys because they detrain massively and it takes a long time to retrain them. Like Donovan, we just did that with Donovan. His vertical's in the shitter right now because he's so detrained. And Isaiah is flying right now because he was sustaining 47, 48 inches all year. And now I've removed volume and he's able to display the outputs that he has. And then that's why he's jumping 0.992, PRing, a vertical jump on a fucking random empty gym Friday after he had the toughest week of his life. It made no sense at all, but it does make sense in the context of what happened a year or 2 years of training and the things that we've accumulated. I guess, what other questions do you have before I go on another rant?
I'm looking at, I have like videos of different jump styles, I guess. Like I have one where if I'm focusing on my form, one if I'm just like I have my PR, which is like my natural.
Let's definitely look at it. If you can send it in the chat, the Zoom chat, I'll be able to break those down for you. This one you think looks the best too?
No. This one, I hit my normal form.
Super, super, super elastic takeoff. So this is really vertical, really, really vertical. Yeah, you're picking like an incredibly elastic jump strategy. Like this is insane. You're basically pogo sticking off the ground. I imagine you probably jumped way higher in the months where you're not doing max strength work than the ones that you are, but I could be wrong. Does max strength flatten you out a lot?
I usually feel like the deloads more than I feel like what the training is. Like if I like high volume going off and
Yeah.
like hitting, I'll feel that a bigger difference. Normally I feel like the same mid
Okay.
meso cycle.
That's kind of how Isaiah is too. Like he's fucked up during the deload, and then like week 1 of month 2, he feels great. Okay. Oh yeah. What the hell? How the hell did you manage to just switch your technique completely?
Oh, it's kind of freaky. Like
How the hell, Isaiah? I don't know if you saw this. This is
Let me
shocking.
see it again. Let me see it again.
This is his good
That's
technique.
awesome.
Yeah, that looks amazing. How much lower is that jump in comparison?
like my long penultimate is like 2 or 3 inches lower than my regular.
What about your off plant long penultimate? Does that exist?
Yeah. Actually, I also think it looks a little freaky too. I'm gonna send it. The one that I just PR'd, it was only 2 inches less.
Okay, so this is good. So what's probably happening is you have retained so much motor patterns in the best quote unquote technique that now switching to what is good technique with that plant is really challenging because you want to default back to what you've learned like a bunch of times. This is elastic as shit too. So this is your non-dominant elastic plant.
This is my non-dominant.
So you definitely prefer to be elastic as hell. You're really, really elastic. You're like a pretty well balanced athlete. I'd be curious to see your RSI. You're kind of in a situation where I see that you're good at using elastic energy. You can use good technique, but you don't use it quite as well. And that's probably primarily because of the strength deficits that you're seeing. I don't know what your range of motion looks like in some of those lifts. I would be curious to see what that would do.
I have videos of them too. And then I sent in medium penultimates.
Pretty solid, honestly. So your block foot is a little late. I think the biggest problem with the long penultimate step for you is you're not using your block foot. It's late. Your block foot's so late. So when you're using a short penultimate, you're able to get your penultimate step down really quickly because you're basically pogo sticking into it. You're like jump stopping into it. And when you extend that penultimate step, you're now in deeper flexion, which means that your muscle has to be more forceful. It has to generate more force to handle that. And then 2, your block foot has to come around faster because you have more speed. So now it has to transfer that horizontal momentum vertically.
I have some thoughts on this. One, this is freaking fascinating to see like
it is
that you can do both.
You're like me.
Pretty well, and the discrepancies.
I take notes.
I also have like thoughts anecdotally on this. I think freaky things happen when you can do a long penultimate in an elastic fashion. Does that make sense?
Right. That's
like if you combine the rhythm and timing of your short penultimate with the positions you hit on the long penultimate, that's when a long penultimate becomes a better strategy. But it requires you to physiologically be a freaking monster to be able to do that.
He moves really, really well, Isaiah. Really well. Okay, so one, get out of the fucking barefoot shoes. You need to get into Ole shoes. You're too posterior chain dominant. You default to using your hips, you default to using your hamstrings, and stood that shit up. So I can tell right here. See how you're really, this is good eccentrically. And then look at how your butt just shoots forward, the shoulders dip down. You're kind of in this, you're not very vertical. And so what that's doing, you're just loading all hip, right? And so I think part of the reason why you're, and this is also probably why you're planting on your heel on the block foot, you're trying to load up your hip a lot. So you could either lean into that and start practicing like what CJ does, CJ Champion, and using your hip and using your low back to your advantage. That could potentially help. Or when you're squatting, you can stay a little bit more upright. Like your front squat, you lean forward a little bit. It's not as extreme, but you can tell you're a hip dominant athlete. Like you really want to do that. The reason your squat is plateaued is because you're squatting deep as fuck. You're like, your squat is so honest, and that's going to make it really, really hard to get out of the bottom unless you're really going to bounce out of it. Or 10 pounds on your back squat is massively different than 10 pounds on my back squat because I'm doing a half squat. I can put fucking 50 pounds on my back, my half squat just by intent alone. Yours is really limited by, you know, the force production of the muscle at really long lengths. I bet if you were to squat 6 inches more shallow, you'd still be deeper than in probably Isaiah squats. And if you were to work on that a bit, your back squat would go up massively. I've seen a lot of the time when guys have really, really deep back squats and front squats, you just hit a wall past a certain point because the leverage is so fucking bad and the muscle length is so long that it just gets really, really hard to improve. I think a cycle of maybe doing some half squats eventually could be really, really beneficial for you at some point. I don't want to say now because I still want to absolutely obliterate you in the weight room. I think it would be so fun. I can see why your knees probably hurt. You have very high intent when you lift. I would encourage you to don't be afraid to go slow sometimes on lifts and don't be afraid to cut the range of motion sometimes. Your internal loading is a lot higher than most other people because of the way that you're moving the weight and the range of motion through which you're moving the weight. It's going to be more extreme. The leverages are worse, going to require more intramuscular force. You have less cross bridging of your muscles and the bottom of a lift. So it requires changing that, which is an incredibly slow process that can be good, but maybe is unnecessary in your case. You're not a cross-country skier where the length tension relationship needs, or a cyclist. Like a cyclist is always in flexion. They never get out of flexion. They're always in it, no matter what. And we're not in that. We're extending fully through the jump. So for you, you're essentially training to be a cyclist. You're training to generate a fuck ton of force in a very deep knee position, which can be good, but when done to the extreme that you're doing it, can be deleterious or detrimental because your specificity is lower. Your specificity is higher if you're doing something like a half squat that's closer to the range of motion you're going to see in a jump. So I think there's a lot of pieces to your individual story that are kind of dictating why you're feeling the things that you're feeling. But my pieces of encouragement to you would be definitely communicate. Don't be afraid to do another one of these calls. That's one thing I would say. The second is I would truck through in early August, the Prinz loop and the hardest part of it and see if you survive it. And if you do, I suspect you'll get a lot stronger. I would encourage you to take more protein, a shit ton of protein, and decrease your carbohydrate unless it's like right before the session. And your jump technique, I honestly would work on some of the things that Isaiah said. I think that he did a really good job of kind of summing up the major focuses that for you would make a world of a difference. So timing up the block foot faster and getting better and practicing it and retaining that. And then as we build strength in that half squat position, I think you'll see a lot of progress.
Do you think on my jump sessions, if I'm focusing, like
You
if
always want to use perfect technique every single time. Use perfect technique every time. You want to break the bad habit that you've built for the last 10 years of your life as fast and as best possible. And eventually your ceiling will go up as a result. Like Josh Rubel's been doing this for 2 months. And with me being able to police it, you know, sometimes he reverts back to bad habits and I have to remind him like, hey, this is not what you want to do. And, you know, if after a year or two, you're like, hey, I've really committed to this solely and I haven't done any bad reps. First off, you're not going to go back to doing bad reps because it's going to feel better and it's going to get more comfortable and you're going to be able to put more force into it. But if for some reason it does look like shit, then I'll just say, okay, just jump as high as you can. Doesn't matter anymore. That's always an option and it's the easy solution, but that lowers your genetic ceiling. And so that's why I don't like to tell guys to do that.
I would say it's like either or. Either practice it every single time and don't falter, or just don't even try.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say if I go for a longer penultimate, but I can't get the block timing fast enough for the session, would
You
that
will.
also be like a
No, that
bad
would
habit?
be good practice because you're trying. It doesn't matter if you do it perfectly. It matters if you're trying to do it perfectly. That is the most important thing. And I don't even have to see it be perfect. I just have to know that it looks different than it usually does. And then as you get better, you'll chunk it. So maybe initially it's the length, and then the next time is the timing, and the next one it's the takeoff angle, and the next one it's the arm swing. And then as you piece those together, your outcome, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, and you end up improving more than you otherwise would have.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it was good getting to meet. It was a super fun
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
And
Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem, Brian.
Nice
Have a
talking to
good
you, man.
rest of your day, brother. See
See
ya.
ya.
See ya.